Hey guys, welcome back to episode 3 of me building a park with every single dinosaur in the game. So in the last one we added up only 2, it was a short episode, but today we're going back to episode 1 and it's going to be quite a long video, I'm going to be honest. I think right now it's sitting at 20 something minutes, pretty long. So if you guys stayed to the end, thank you so much. If you guys didn't watch the last one, however, we did make several new additions to the park. We made the petting zoo, the Herbivore Garden, Sauropod Sound, Herbivore Cafe. We did Highland Swamp and the Lowland Marshes. But today, in this one, we're going to be adding several more. That's why this video is so long. But now we're going to get into it, and I hope you guys do enjoy. Alright, so as you're seeing right here, I decided to make a little path, and at any single intersection, I wanted to add like a nice little flare. So in this one, I just chose and made it very simple. I made it just a fountain and some trees. But yeah, so this one, I was gonna tail it off. It was gonna go from the swamps to the Ornithomimosaur Valley, which is kind of like the one in the actual Jurassic World, but just way smaller, obviously. So I put it in between the two mountains, which in episode 1 I mentioned that, and I thought it looked pretty good. So I painted a bunch of sand to make it look a bit more extravagant and whatnot, and I added some fences. For the fences, I didn't want it wrapping all the way around the mountain, so I just kind of faded it in and out with these invisible fences, and I didn't want them climbing on the actual mountain, so I made them only go up so high. And since I didn't want them wandering the trees so you couldn't see them, most of the tree line is cut off by a bunch of these rocks and the invisible fences, and these rocks prevent the dinosaurs from getting out. And then I added a bunch of rocks to give it some variation in the terrain. I thought it looked a lot nicer, especially around the mountain. It looked way, way nicer. And then I wanted like a really cool, not waiting area, just like a cool like entrance area for the Ornithomimosaurs, which I thought looked pretty awesome at the end. So I started off making a gigantic circle, and then I added a bunch of these things to give it some variation in terrain, so it wasn't just big, like a one big plain circle. I thought this looked way nicer. And then when I made this, I didn't know exactly how the pathing tool works, so I had to delete a bunch of this and redo it all again, so I could actually make it work. But yeah. At this time, I didn't really like path making, but I thought it looked pretty decent at the end of it. Then I decided on what planters I wanted, so I just put a gigantic fountain in the middle, and a bunch of like seating areas I try to make as even as possible, but it's kind of hard on console to do that. So I did my best still. And I wanted to add a fossil, but I couldn't figure it out. I felt like there's a bunch of empty space. So I ended up deciding I wanted walls around the fences, so you wouldn't be looking directly at just some bland old fences the whole time. I thought it was pretty boring, so I gave it a Jurassic Park wall, which eventually just kind of faded off in the tree line, because I don't believe trees mess with like the hitboxes for these things. And I surround the whole thing in trees. Okay, so the next thing I did was add these Jurassic Park fallen trees. I thought it looked pretty cool. Those are going to be like a decoration piece, and then I tried as best I could to make an even circle where all these like totem poles, the tiki torches intertwined with each other, so it looked even. And then I needed more decoration, but nothing was really fitting, so I decided I was going to go to the trees, and I was going to put these like bushes. First off, I love these bushes. They're my favorites. Right, so I finished that around. I moved that one log because it wasn't completely even. And then I decided to add the Ornithomimosaurs. So I added the Archaeornithomimus, Gallimimus, and Struthi. I gave them a bunch of variations, but for the Gallimimus, I just wanted to be the 1990s one, so I just chose that. But I gave it a bunch of variation, and this thing would be filled with dinosaurs. I thought it looked pretty cool by the end of it. So I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. The thick jungle, that's what I called it, was my least favorite build that I made here. I've never really been good at making jungle, especially in like the taiga biome, because there's obviously no jungle trees. So I kind of made this one work. It's a very small one compared to the rest of the builds, and like I said, it's also my least favorite, but I tried to make it work as best as I could. And also, while I was doing that, I went back to the Gallimimuses, found out this cool little glitch or whatever you can see underneath it. I thought it was pretty cool. But yeah, so I don't know, I just had to butt in there and show this one to you guys fast. You gotta do it on the corner of the map if you want to try it to yourself. It's very, very odd. But anyways, I'm back to this. I wanted to give it a bit of a, more detail, so I made these kind of like V-shaped entrances path to the viewing platforms. And then I added some decorations around it. For the decorations, as you can see, I chose some planters. Love planters, by the way. They're great. And I try to make it even on both sides as best to my ability as I could, because it wasn't very even. I'm gonna be honest, I just eyeballed the size. Then I added some more lights, and also these lights gotta be one of my favorites. I think they're super cool. And like I said, I eyeballed it, so I had to move that one back just a little smidge. And then I added the lights, and then I added some watering holes. I wanted them to go to the thingies eventually, not the thingies, the viewing platforms eventually, so they actually people could see the dinosaurs. So that's what this is. And I decided to add these ginkgo trees. I think they're called ginkgos, right? I can never remember the name. But yeah, I did that, and in between every single blank area, I added the cycad groves to make it more like jungly and all that. And then I added some more, just kept filling it in and filling it in. And then I added some of these seed plants, the swamp trees I like to call them. And then I decided that it wasn't fully furnished, so I needed to add a bunch of trees. And I mean a bunch of trees. I added the tropical ones, I added the Mediterranean ones, I'm pretty sure, just to give it a lot of tree cover so you couldn't see any dinosaurs from above. And then I added some palm trees around the lake to make it look a lot fancier, I think, in my opinion. It looked very cool, very tropically, especially in like this taiga biome. This is the best I could do. And like I said, it's still my least favorite, but I kind of like the little watering holes. I thought they looked pretty cool by the end of it. And then if you notice on the back, there's another path, another like enclosure. That's because I forgot to finish this one. I totally forgot to add the trees, and I had to come back to this halfway through making another one. Right, so the dinosaurs I added were the Majungosauruses, the Sauropods, the Compsognathus, and the Amargasaurus. I thought they looked pretty cool. They all very suit, like, the biome that much. And I believe the Amargasaurus is actually from, like, jungles and all that. But anyways, the next biome that I started before, actually finishing the jungle one, was this one. This is supposed to be Asia. So this path that I'm making is not just me flowing with it. I'm actually trying to make the shape of Asia, but I realized that I didn't size it correctly. And by shape I mean of Asia, it is a very rough shape of Asia. Like if you squint hard enough, you can kind of see it, but no. So this is just the path, and all these dinosaurs, at least most of them. I got most of the Asian dinosaurs in here. Not every single dinosaur from Asia will be in here because they're in other builds. But I was actually really proud of this one by the end of it. I gave it this cool little entrance area for like seating and all that. And eventually I'm going to add a Zen Garden, which I really like the turnout of it. But you'll see that later on once I get to that. And just like I did for the Ornithomimosaurs, I added these fancy little pathways to make it look a bit more varied in the texture of it. So for this next part, once I finished like the design of the fences I want, I just added a bunch of fences around the paths, like you do, so the dinosaurs don't actually escape. Because I wasn't gonna do planters around the whole thing again. I hated that. And this part, like the bends were really hard. I don't know why I couldn't figure it out. It was really easy normally, but I guess I got camera shy and couldn't figure it out quite like I normally do. And anyways, I also added a bunch of texture, like a bunch of different slow not rolling hills, but like a bunch of tiny little hills, so that the dinosaurs wouldn't be in flat land and it would look super boring. I also added a bunch of these trees around, since, I don't know, I normally think of like those pink trees in Japan and Asia and all those places. I know Japan isn't in Asia, but around that area, you think of like this kind of pink tree. The closest thing we have to a pink tree would be an orange one, though. And as for the dinosaurs I added this, is it called Shin Tower Sins? I don't know. The one with the penis on its forehead. I added that guy because they're from Asia. I also added don't get upset at me for pronouncing the names wrong. Is it the Chinjaosaurus? I watched Prehistoric Planet. I don't remember what they called it. Anyways, I also added the Sinoceratops from Jurassic World. I thought it was pretty cool. And then I also added, goddamn, how do I pronounce these things? Please don't make fun of me. Don't dislike the video because of this. I added the Chunkingosaurus and the Gigantic Spinosaurus. See, the names throw me off. It's such a long name. But finally, obviously, I had to add the Therizinosaurus. And eventually, I decided I wanted to add Sinosauropteryx. I made all of them pretty cool. For the Therizinosaurus, I gave it a normal brown coloring pattern blend in, but I also gave it some bright colors to help stand out, because I feel like feathered birds would have some of that. For the Chinjaosaurus, I added a bunch of colorfulness, because I thought it looked really pretty. And that's my favorite skin for the dinosaur, I'm going to be honest for you guys. So for this mountain in the middle, to kind of separate off and block the view from the other exhibits without walking around, I added like this short little mountain. I thought it looked pretty cool, and I kind of blended it into the terrain and all that. Made it look very fancy, in my opinion, not to brag. I thought it looked pretty good by the end. And I didn't know exactly what I wanted on the top, so I kind of fiddled around with it, and then I added a bunch of just, my own trees. So I did add the temperate ones by mistake, but I added these like autumn trees, which I thought looked way, way nicer. And I spent a good amount of time doing this, I'm gonna be honest, probably 10 minutes, I don't know, something like that. It was too long to spend on building a mountain with trees on it. It wasn't very fun. But I also added a bunch of trees around the place to give it, like the dinosaur, something to stand under for some shade. To also add up some color to pop it and make it themed for the mountain, obviously, and the rest of the Asia, make it stand out on its own. For their Xenosaurus, I gave it a bunch of tree covering, because just from Jurassic World, I believe they would have liked trees, so I gave them that. And I also added a bunch of flowers. I thought it looked really cool by the end of it. I'm going to be honest with you guys. Right, so here's me adding the trees. I didn't add just orange or just red. I also added some green around. I thought it pulled together very nicely. Yeah, it came out very cool. And a bunch of little saplings too, so just the gigantic trees. And the fence looked kind of weird, especially at the intersection, so I added a bunch of trees surrounding them. But anyways, once I finished that, I decided to go work on the little pavilion nearby. So I put these planters with some trees around it. I thought they looked very fancy, I'm going to be honest with you. And again, I don't know why, but on console, this thing's so hard to do. So, this took a long, long time. And eventually, I was like, yeah, I'm kind of proud of this. It looked very cool, in my opinion. I'm very, like I said, I'm repeating what I'm saying, but I'm very proud of how it turned out. I also added a bunch of little trees in between every single intersection, like where all the planters connected, so it didn't look too boring. I thought it came out very, kind of like, not, what's the word I'm looking for? Not vibrant, but it popped out. It gave it like its own little feel. So I also have this idea for a Zen Garden. I actually had two. I have one for like waterworks and one for like trees. But for this water one, I added a bunch of these biosin fountains because they kind of pull through and make it look very zen-y. I don't know how else to describe it. Alright, so I'm also adding these lights, make everything pop, especially at night. It's gonna look way better at night with these lights now. I also added some in between it. I'm so sorry about that. My dog started barking. But anyways, like I was saying, I added some lights, I added some to make it pop more, and I wanted to get something in the middle, but I didn't know exactly what would work. These things wouldn't fit these walls, so I could just kind of put them on the outside, just to kind of block off the fences too, and I gave it some more trees. I thought it looked very cool. Those like, oh shit, what are they called? I feel so bad now, I feel really insensitive. Those like kind of papyrus walls that you see in like Ghost of Tsushima. I feel so I feel so bad, right? I'm so sorry. Like, if this is your culture, I'm really sorry. I'm really sensitive behind it. I don't know what they're called. If you do, can you please let me know? Because I actually do want to know what they're called. But yeah. I'm sorry again for not knowing what things are called. Anyways, back to the video at hand. I added some more stuff around here. And I wanted to add a Zen Garden, like I said. So, kind of try to make this work. I made it as even as I could. Make a little outcrop. This is where the start of it would be, and I added some of these Jurassic Park walls. Before that, though, I did add some, like, picnic tables. I thought it looked very nice. And I didn't know exactly how I wanted it to look, so right now I'm just kind of getting a feel for it, which I tear down most of those walls by the end of it. But, so for me sizing it, as you can see, I'm just working, yep, there we go. See, I told you, I swapped out the walls. I don't know exactly, I literally wing everything I do, I'm going to be honest with you guys. Most of this stuff isn't planned in my videos. So it's kind of make a wavy path work. Then I realized this thing wasn't working. So I had to move that. But I completely forgot that I probably should have angled it right before I put it on. So I had to destroy this thing several times. And then that's why you saw me delete it a couple of times. But I also added some trees in here. But literally, most of it wasn't filling up. So while I added this, after I added some more walls to block it off from the rest of the park, I added a bunch of trees, which I thought looked very nice. I chose the same ones, the autumn ones, which made everything pop. I'm going to be honest with you guys. It looked very, very cool. A bunch of red, a bunch of like green, a bunch of orange, a little bit yellow. All of it popped. It worked very well together in my opinion. I really loved how this build turned out. But I wasn't done. The trees were not the end. Do not fret. The next thing we added were rocks, and oh man, I love rocks. I chose the white ones to help it kind of stood out. But then I also added some lights, and these Jurassic World lights they look very like regal almost. I really like how it turned out. But anyways, I'll shut up and I'll let you guys take a tour through this little garden now. Alright, now that the tour is over, I wanted to kind of not blend everything together. I wanted to make it look more natural, so I gave it a little pond on the end so when you walk around, you don't get bored of looking at dinosaurs, which that's not going to happen, but still. I didn't want it to all just be Canadian wilderness, so it didn't look like it blended together, so I threw a bunch of those ginkgo trees into it as well. And I also added the entrance to the next half of the park, which will be the next build that I do. But then, yeah, I kind of tried to make this work. I didn't know exactly what to do, so I was kind of eyeballing it. I decided to make it as wide as I could. It's just one path, so it's as even as it could possibly, which you're seeing right now. But this one, I'm going to be honest, it's just all the dinosaurs. I didn't know where else to put. So there's one half is the herbivores, the other half is the carnivores. And the middle, I kind of want to make it look like the reflection pool in DC. But by the end of it, I didn't like how it looked, so I got rid of it. Anyways, I added the light fences for the herbivores, and then I added the heavy fences for the carnivores. I didn't make it too big, because like I said, I don't want to be, like, well, not like I said, I just didn't want it to be, like, super huge and, like, a huge eyesore, because it's just a straight path. And I didn't really want to stand out, because these are the dinosaurs that don't stand out, in my opinion, for the most part, at least. There are a few that are really, like, for instance, my favorite dinosaurs in here. But I chose a bunch that I didn't know where else to put them. So in this park, in this context, they are very, forgettable. Right, so I added some Canadian wilderness around the taiga to help blend it in, and I also finished it around the Asian wilderness to make it look a lot nicer. Again, like I said, I wanted to blend into the taiga, so I added more bonds and all that. Anyways, so when I went back to working on this, I realized that it might have been too small, so I also wanted another entrance. So I did this. I did not like how it turned out, so I eventually got rid of it. Made just a straight path, but I think it looks a bit nicer, a bit cleaner in my opinion. Right, so I forgot that these were not the fences I wanted to use. They were invisible fences, so I just changed them to the medium red fences, which I really, really like. That's one of my favorite fences. And then I added the dinosaurs. So for the herbivores, one second, sit down, there's a lot of these. I got the Myosaur, the Stegosaurus, the Styracosaurus, the Pachyrhinosaurus, and the Stiddy Mohawk. And also the Pachycephalosaurus, which I do move eventually, you'll see later in the video. Or like another episode, I believe. Right, so I added all these guys, and I kind of put them in here. I wanted to make it look very nice, so I gave it a very reservy feel. A lot of trees in the back, and a lot of like little ponds in the front with a bunch of sand around it so the dinosaurs could be there. And I got rid of some of it too, so it wasn't all plant life. Right, so I realized it might have been a bit too small for all the dinosaurs I wanted, so I made a smaller half of it for the smaller dinosaurs, and I did the same thing for the carnivores, which I thought looked a bit nicer too. Didn't look like just an eyesore, looked like it was meant to be there. And I also chose the smaller dinosaurs for the carnivores too. So I filled it with more trees, and I really like how the trees look. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, they look super cool. They make everything a lot fancier. Like this park, like that little glimpse that you saw, looking incredible. Not to toot my own horn, but I think it looks pretty good. Anyways, in the small enclosures, I added some trees, made it look really fancy. The ones on the left, I didn't like the tiny ones. I didn't really care so much about how they looked. It was mostly the big ones, in my opinion, because that's the main draw of this drawless enclosure. But I added some rocks. We love rocks on this channel, I'm gonna be honest. Rocks are my favorite part. They look so good. Yeah, so once I finished the rocks, I shipped the dinosaurs over, which I'm very proud of them. And also, this is a design I made. I really like how it looks. It's like kind of a little enclosure. It's just a separate part of the place for the prey to go to, so they can climb out whenever they want. Not climb out, they can crawl out whenever they want to. And I put it in almost every single build now. I really like how it turns out. But it was snapping, I didn't like how it was snapped. So I had to make it more pentagonal. So that's why it's not square, really. And as for the carnivores I added the Metriacanthosaurus, the Dilophosaurus, the Cryolophosaurus, the Acrocanthosaurus, the Allosaurus, and the Megalosaurus, which look very, very cool. I really like how these guys look, especially the Cryolophosaurus. They're one of my favorites in the game, and I wanted their crest to shine, so I gave them a dull, like, green pattern, obviously, and then I chose the ones who looked the most vibrant. And like I said, I didn't like the reflection pool, so I added this giant mound in the middle, so you have to keep walking around it. It kind of blocks view from the other side, so you gotta walk all around, which I really like. That's, yeah. I'm very much more proud of this one than I am the other one. And I made like an actual mountain of rocks and trees on top. Anyways, that has been the end of this very long video. Again, I'm sorry it was so long, but I hope you guys did enjoy it. And in the next one, we'll be adding a bunch more. This is only just the start. We've only added a few enclosures, and by the time I finish editing this, I've already streamed everything, so if you guys cannot wait for more content, you can just go look at that. But if you can't not wait for me to stream it, I will be uploading within the next week or so, episode 4. Again, I'm very proud of all these ones, and I hope you guys did enjoy it. And if you did, consider liking and subscribing. Have a great day.